This meeting is being recorded. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Chris Cavanero and your host for today's webinar. If by chance you missed a webinar in the future, all webinars are recorded and uploaded into Sonicwall University as a course. You could access the recorded webinar at any time by clicking the Events Recorded Webinars tab on the homepage of Sonicwall University. We are constantly adding new webinars and content to Sonicwall University and encourage you to log in often. Thank you for taking the time to attend today's Sonicwall University webinar. During the webinar, if you should have any questions, please feel free to type your question in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And now I'd like to present Kelvin Peters. Kelvin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome everyone to, I guess this is the first webinar of 2023, so thanks for coming out. Today we're going to be talking about integrating DUO with the Sonicwall Firewall. It's kind of, you'll see we've also synced Azure Active Directory into DUO. So kind of, a lot of people have been asking, for SAML integration in the firewall, which has, been in the works for some time, and it's planned at some point on our roadmap, but we're still waiting for that. So this is hopefully a nice kind of alternative to direct SAML integration. All right, for those of you who don't know me, Kelvin Peters, I currently work out of California and Hawaii. We're always looking for feedback and any, ideas for upcoming webinars. Feel free to drop me an email, kpeters@sonicwall.com. And as Chris mentioned, these recorded webinars are always, posted in Sonicwall University. We've also, started posting them on YouTube. So you can see here, we have this NordCal user group YouTube channel that we've, started putting these videos. So, again, you can subscribe to that channel as well and, be kind of notified as these webinars get posted. All right, so here's a quick agenda, what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at the, what the topology looks like. So we're going to look at a nice diagram of how this is all laid out. And then we're going to go through the setup. So the setup is obviously you have to protect the application in the DUO admin portal. And then we're going to, look at the installation and configuring of the authentication proxy. And then, configuring the radius on the firewall. And then we'll, test out the VPN using Netextender, and you'll see we'll get the DUO push, and we'll be using one of those Azure Active Directory users that have synced into the DUO backend. We won't cover the setup for the VPN, but I can certainly provide a link in the slide deck if you guys are looking for that as well. All right, so looking at the topology here, so you can see we have our Azure Active Directory. So these are actually my Office 365 users who I've synced into the DUO platform. And then I have this authentication proxy running on a server 2019, I believe. I think that's the recommended version that DUO recommends. And I have a NSA 3700 that'll be serving up this service to your VPN users. And obviously you see your user over here. He'll be dialing in with the Netextender, but you could also, integrate Radius into the global VPN. So the IPsec client, you can also do a similar setup as well. All right, so this link here is just the general link for setting up Radius. So it's a generic document. It applies to not only Sonicwall but multiple vendors. You can see here. So we're going to install the DUO proxy. Actually, it's server 2016 I have. And then the big thing here is we're going to choose the primary auth method. So in our case, we're going to be using the DUO only client, and you're going to see this when we get into the config on the actual DUO proxy. The DUO only client, this is going to allow me to actually send the pre-authentication to DUO, as well as get that multi-factor push from them, right? So if you had something on-prem, you could, if you wanted to authenticate against Radius, you could essentially, add the Radius client into the same config. or Active Directory. So kind of have different ways to do your pre-authentication. Here we chose to do the DUO only, pretty much to kind of showcase that even though there's no direct SAML support, you can kind of work around that if you're still trying to get those users into play here with the VPN, right? So. All right, so just a quick snapshot of the actual config. We'll see, the first two lines here, the I key, S key, and host. We're going to get that when we protect the application in the DUO admin portal, right? So these are pieces of information we will get out of that config. The radius IP is my firewall. So this is needed. Obviously, it has a secret passphrase. This one is obviously not recommended, super secret. You'd likely want to use something a little bit more secure than that. And I also put a note here for the fail-safe, fail mode. So I'm using the safe kind of mode. In your environment, you might want to use the secure. So safe, essentially, if DUO, if I can't authenticate to DUO, it'll actually allow my users to authenticate with just the password. But you'll see if you choose secure, it will effectively, if DUO can't authenticate or DUO is down, it will effectively cut off all access, right? So just keep in mind, depending on the environment, you'd likely choose secure versus safe, but it all depends on if you still need connectivity. But again, this was pretty much dictated by your security, right? And then here we have the DUO only client, and you'll see we make reference up here, but we don't actually have any config, so you don't actually have to put anything under the config. And then lastly, the port that my DUO proxy is listing on, that's the standard radius port 1812. Okay, so we'll see this again when we're going to hit the server, and we'll see that same config on the server as well. All right, so then from there we're going to go into the DUO admin portal, and we'll show you exactly what I mean by protecting an application. And then again, I mentioned that DUO only client, so we'll be syncing those users from Azure Active Directory. I'll show you how we would accomplish that in the DUO admin portal. And then, the simple config on the radius on the Sonicwall Firewall, and then we're going to get into testing the Netextender as well. And I mentioned before, you could use Global VPN or even Mobile Connect, depending on the device you have this installed on. All right, so let's get in there. So we're gonna bring up we'll go to the DUO portal first, and I'll show you the directory sync. So you can see I already have a bunch of users synced in here, and it's really through this directory sync option in the DUO admin portal. For you guys, if you're looking to set this up, I mean, if you needed to set this up in a lab as a trial, you can actually get a trial from DUO. So they actually give you 30 days, but you can actually extend it depending on the licenses that are available. So you can actually jump from once your 30-day trial expires, you can jump to the next package, So I think you can get 90 or 120 days out of this if you needed to test this out before proposing this to a customer or implementing it in a live environment. So here you see I've added the sync, so you can see it'll periodically sync. You can now also do a sync now if you've made a change and you don't want to wait. You see by default here it's 12 hours, but you can come in here. So if you've made some group changes in Azure, you can come in here and do a sync, and that everything will be all set up here for you. I'm specifying a specific group that is being synced here, so you can either sync the entire directory or limit it to only the users of part of a specific group. So maybe it's like a VPN group. You could sync that directly in here. One setting I found useful, and actually I was running into issues without having it selected. So by default, this is not selected. But if you select this, it seems to work. And if you unselect this, you seem to run into some issues. So this, I recommend, setting that to normalize those usernames. and everything else you see here is actually default. So I haven't changed anything else. This is, the only thing like I mentioned I changed was that normalize usernames, and that was the extension. So once my users have been synced in here, I can essentially then go to protect an application. Okay, so from here, you'll see I have a single application set up called Radius. And here are these keys. So if you recall back on the slide deck that we were looking at, the config on the server, these are the 3 pieces of information that we needed to populate that config file. So you just simply copy that and paste that over on the server's config file. And then if I scroll down, I've just added a policy on top of the global policy. This is just to enforce my 2-factor authentication. That's all that's in the policy. You could, use the global policy, but I always like to, create a separate policy just for, this type of purpose here. Once that's all set up, there's only one other thing you would need to do, and that's you could actually, enroll the users, right? So by enrolling a user, all it's doing is it's sending the user's email address, a link to log in and then enroll, right? So that will force them to, scan a QR code and then get the DUO authentication onto their phone, right? So you install the DUO application on a mobile device and you scan the QR code, and now you get an application where once I try and log in, I'll actually get a push on my mobile device, and I just click, accept or deny, and that's essentially going to satisfy the 2-factor authentication part of it. All right. All right, so that's, like I said, that's pretty much it. So we're gonna go back here just real quick to my application, just so you guys can have a visual. So we're gonna jump over to the server, and you're gonna see that this information here is exactly what we're gonna see over on the server. All right, so here we go. I've obviously already installed the DUO Authentication Proxy Manager. You can get the installer from the that document I showed you with the link in the PowerPoint. So it's pretty much just duo.com/docs/radius, and that's the document that you're looking for. The link is in there for the latest version. You can see I'm up to date. If you were out of date, it would remind you here. So what you do is, you'll populate this, this information in here, and you can actually validate it, prior to, saving it. So you want to make sure that you have all, green information over here. So if something was kind of wrong or incorrect in your syntax, you would get that information on the right-hand side. So pretty good indicator of, you got to kind of look back and see where you kind of went wrong. Once you've done that, you can click save, and then you can restart the service at the very top here. So if you ever need to restart or stop the service, you can open up this application, and this really controls the service that's running on the machine. All right. So that's pretty much the setup on there. So let's jump over to the firewall, if I can find it. Just bear with me. Doesn't look like I have that window open. All right, so we're in my 3700. This is the device that we're going to set up the Radius. Like I said, SSL VPN is already set up, enabled on the WAN zone. So that part of it's already ready to go. Let's go into device and then users. And this is essentially where it all happens, is under this configure radius. So what you do is you'll configure radius, and then you'll make sure your authentication method is set to radius in my case, I have Radius plus local users, but you could specify Radius if you were just using Radius for authentication. What you would do is you would come in here. I already have this server. It'll show idle if it hasn't had an authentication against it. But all you do is you would click on Add here. You fill out the IP of the Radius proxy server, right? You fill in your port, and then that's that secret, super secret password that we have set up. You would populate it in here. And then under advanced, the only thing I have is the username format. And this is obviously domain/name. And that's it for the Radius part. There are other settings here. Typically you want to set this. This one's actually only set to 30, but you'd want to max this out. The most you could put here is 59 seconds. And that would give the agent, when you connect, sufficient time for the user to accept the push, right? Besides that, the 3 retries is fine. And then in here, what you want to do is flip this to SSL VPN services. So by default, the Radius user will be part of the SSL VPN service group that would effectively allow them to VPN in. And then last, there is a test here. So you can come in here and do a connectivity test, and we should have a response from the server. And if you go back here, you will now see that it's no longer idle because we did send the authentication to it. So it will show that it's active. So don't be alarmed if yours is showing idle. I know it kind of looks like maybe it's down, but you can usually get that to work if you click on test here. That will show that everything is ready to kind of go. All right. So once we have that, we should be able to test out the actual setup. So let's go into a machine here. Let's see. I think we have Netextender running. So you can see here, I'm connecting in on the 4433 port, which is set up for my SSL VPN. And I'm connecting in. This Alex W is a user that exists in my Azure Active Directory. I'm obviously putting in their password. Local domain, that is actually what is set up on the firewall. This could be set to something different if you want. Just be sure that this is case sensitive. So just be sure you type it the way you have it set up on the firewall. And then we'll click on connect. So we should, I should in a second here get a prompt on my phone. So you guys obviously can't see that, but I effectively got a pop-up from my DUO application with a deny or approve action. So I'm going to click on approve, and this will finish the connection for me on the VPN. So with that said, I mean, not a lot, of config. If you get the pieces all together, again, you can use that DUO proxy if you wanted to, set that, for a Radius or Active Directory on-prem. I mean, you could certainly do that, or maybe your Active Directory on-prem server is syncing with Azure as well. So there's a bunch of ways you can accomplish the connectivity here. Obviously, the way we did it was to sync the Azure into DUO, and then now we can use the same user on the firewall without that traditional SAML direct integration that I know everyone on this call has probably been waiting for. But that's essentially it. Any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A at the bottom. I don't see anything come in as of yet, but feel free to we'll stay on the call for a little bit. We'll see if there's any questions that come in. If anything does come up at a later time, don't hesitate to reach out. Again, this video is being recorded, so you will see it on both the YouTube channel and in Sonicwall University. So if you need to look back at it, you certainly can. And I'll also include the slide deck with the links. I'll also throw in a link to setting up the SSL VPN as well.
Hey, Calvin, I don't see any other questions coming through.
All right. Well, if anyone does have a question at a later time, you have my email. Feel free to reach out, and I'm always happy to have a conversation even after these webinars. So yeah, with that said, I'll pass it back to you, Chris. Just thank everyone for joining, and I'll pass it back to you so you can wrap her up.
Thank you, Kelvin. And we'd like to thank everyone for attending today. This meeting is ended and you may now disconnect. Have a great day.